I'm Matthew.
I'm Marty.
I'm Carlos.
And we are the Heroes 3. Welcome to Heroes 3, the bi-weekly podcast where three friends explore the best, worst, and everything in between in the world of Asian cinema. This week we are finishing up our look at A Chinese Odyssey with A Chinese Odyssey Part 2, subtitled Cinderella. And this also came out in the year 1995 and stars Stephen Chow, also directed by Jeffrey Lau, as the first part was. And this movie's really confusing, like surprisingly confusing, given that it's a Stephen Chow comedy. Like, and the confusion isn't just for like comedic effect or something. Like, some of it really is like, I don't quite know like who characters are, because you're not sure like what characters are playing just a different version of the character they were in the first, or if they're like a different character but it's just the same actor.
I kind of think that both parts might be equally confusing, especially if you're not versed in like the Journey of the West lore. And so I think maybe we had more of a fighting chance.
That's true.
Having done some of our research before part one, whereas part two, there's a lot of maybe of the movie's logic that's kind of unspoken and has something to do with the lore of Journey to the West, but it's not something that we've come across anywhere else. A lot of confusion regarding maybe how you interpret like reincarnation and stuff like that. But amazing movie. I think I'm really excited to rewatch.
I really enjoyed this film. I do agree with how it can be confusing. I would say, and I kind of mentioned this a little while ago, I'm a big fan of Kung Fu Cult Master, Lord of the Wu-Tang, and I was getting a lot of vibes, and I feel like when I originally saw that film and I fell in love with it, there was a ton of stuff that I couldn't figure out who's who and what's going on.
And that was part of what you liked, probably, too, right?
I think that it was kind of being exposed to this very foreign world and having that confusion. And that confusion in itself was kind of part of the draw. And I could see a lot of that in this film. I think that a lot of the confusion kind of lies in like the sitcom, romantic kind of intertwining of characters, and especially the second act of this film really leans on that, but nonetheless I really enjoyed it, and I do see the appeal of this film. Like you were saying, how I think this film of the two is the more popular one, and this one really, like, I feel like now seeing both, the first film's really a setup for this film. And you get a lot of everything in here. Again, I would say that we're not really emphasizing the fighting and the action sequences. There are a couple that are pretty cool that I really enjoyed, but it's a lot more of kind of sitcom and romantic comedy in this film.
And we still have some of the the kind of Zucker brother crazy comedy flair, but there's also there's really like a tragic love story here. And I mean, we had traces of that in part one, like kind of before the finale and sort of the confusion with Joker and Jing, but I don't know, the tragic side of the love story here, even rewatching it now years later, it really, I don't know, really affected me still. And
it has a surprisingly sad ending. Or not sad, but kind of melancholy ending.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's pretty brilliantly put together ending, where I think it satisfies most of the sort of plot beats that you would want to happen, but the tone of it is a lot more, I think, like you say, melancholy or wistful. I think some of the confusion too is that in both films, who you see isn't necessarily who a person is, and that's, I think, part of the real hook of both of these movies is it's like, oh, is this a person or is this actually some kind of immortal or deity that's like posing as a person. And then when you add like a jump in time, which was so exciting at the end of part 1, but I think there are certain elements where we're wondering like, oh, okay, is this a younger version? I know we were talking before we recorded, and it's like, okay, is this character even like a younger version of this other character, or even kind of like where are we? And I don't know. I know for me, like one big question when first watching it, and I was still scratching my head rewatching it recently, is when we finally encounter what was the opening to the first film, the Monkey King, in the desert. It's like we see Joker separate from the Monkey King, and there are a couple instances like that where it's almost like there can be multiple versions of like an immortal, or like the immortal can be depicted across a couple different bodies, but yeah,
for me,
I don't know.
I think that scene especially, I was totally getting Back to the Future vibes from that.
Sure.
Like the Lone
like
Pines,
Back to the Future
like,
too. Yeah, the fact that you can like revisit a scene that you've already seen.
Right, but you get it from a slightly different perspective, and things. It's like you're trying to change things, but things can't change.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And actually,
the opening is kind of like a Back to the Future thing too. Is like,
oh yeah,
except it's like using the exact footage that we saw. But
and I just like I was gonna say, fate is such a huge part of this film.
Yeah,
how you kind of have to accept fate, and I would say that a lot of the decisions plot wise in the movie, even though this doesn't really strictly follow Journey to the West, they really represent the themes of Journey to the West. So you've got reincarnation, you've got sacrifice, and you've got kind of like the romance, the sorrow that comes with all of that. So I thought, even though it was doing its own thing, I thought that they really did understand the material they're working from, and I was able to appreciate that a lot.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, one thing we should say is it's like it still is, I think, a super funny movie, and in some ways
great.
I feel like some of the humor is maybe even a little more like sharply focused than part 1. I mean, subjective thing, but I don't know, how'd that strike you guys?
Yeah, I feel like the first one has more comedy just all throughout, and this one just has a couple of really good just stings of comedy throughout it.
Yeah, I don't think anything will match the groin scene, the crotch stomping from the first movie to me. But
no crotch stomping in this movie.
Yeah.
No, but we do get like farts, and
we do get some fart jokes,
We get some really some funny physical comedy too. I really like the scene with the Black Mountain Demon or Black Mountain Devil, where he's sucking the life out of the
that's so great,
guys sleeping, and that whole like physical comedy.
Yeah, he basically really he has this like Dementor's kiss kind of a vibe. Like he sucks the soul, and there's some cool like rotoscoped kind of
there's some
lightning bolty special effects. Looks really cool. What I love is it's Joker and the longevity monk. Oh, I just love the longevity monk. But it's like they realize this dude is coming, and you're kind of wondering like how they're going to foil his like soul suck Dementor's kiss.
It's
and
totally
they do
not
it in
what
the best way, because they just like roll over like at the last second. Oh man, so
he's trying to do a kiss, and then they just roll off to the side and just keep doing it back and forth.
Joanna thought that dude looked like a Teletubby.
I was like,
what?
The demon dude.
Yeah, I didn't get it.
Like
but
Tinky
then once
Winky or
she
something.
said it,
like a really evil Teletubby.
It's messed up.
And we have more of the kind of like Looney Tunes humor too.
Yeah, this is the most Looney Tunes scene.
Because when they finally like decide to run away, and it's one of those like run away, and they each run in opposite directions, and the demon follows the longevity monk, and he's now transformed into like I think an Egyptian sort of outfit.
Yeah, kind of like a pharaoh looking thing.
And he's like, oh, can you hold this? And it's literally like a Wile E. Coyote like spherical bomb with the fuse.
Yeah, super good.
And it blows up in his face, and it's great.
Well, we'll do like we did last episode where we jump around a bit. But I'd like to just maybe start with the beginning of the film.
We can take a look at the beginning, but first let's take a quick look at the back of the VHS. Joker is back. After the events of A Chinese Odyssey Part 1, Joker finds himself stranded in the past and at the mercy of runaway immortal Lin Jia. Fate has revealed to him his true role as the Monkey King, but his heart pulls him towards his lost love. Meanwhile, the journey to the west must continue, and Pixie and Sandy work to rescue Longevity Monk and convince Joker of his divine task. A complicated web traps all who touch Joker's heart. Will he be able to choose the right path? Jeffrey Lau brings you A Chinese Odyssey Part 2, Cinderella, a puzzle of comedy and romance inspired by Journey to the West, starring Athena Chu, Ng Mon Tat, and Stephen Chow. This Cinderella has a sword. So the very, very start of this movie, after the credits, is actually really kind of beautiful.
Yeah,
like,
and
there's
the
these
score
really
is
beautiful
gorgeous,
shots.
too.
Yeah, there's this wonderful music, and it's Zia, Athena Chu, going through a marsh with like this boat.
Yeah, dude, let's give a round of applause to Athena Chu. When I first saw this movie, I just had like the biggest crush in the world, and yeah, just seeing it again, I don't know, she really pops, and I mean, was kind of following this really big star in Hong Kong, but would still love to see her in more films. I don't know.
Oh man, yeah, she's really good in this film. She's definitely like the star of this film. Super cute, very able to handle herself in comedic situations. I think I really like in the film when she ends up getting swapped around
with her
and
sister.
Pigsy's.
Oh,
her acting as Pigsy is like really funny.
Oh, that's so great. And then
really
also
good.
as like her dark sister. Yeah, it's funny. She's so good that she almost makes you like forget about Karen Mock's Jing character. Like your allegiance like shifts pretty quick, which the movie sort of requires of you.
Yeah.
But in a lesser actress, it just would not have worked, I don't think. So
this very first scene after she kind of, I guess, gets where she's trying to go, we see it's kind of a camp similar to the one from the first movie where like all the bandits are hiding out.
Yeah.
But there's these guys like trying to light this candle, and she's saying like, you can't light it because there's no wick. You need to go buy a new wick. And she says,
"Excuse me, miss. Exactly where does one buy a new wick for the lamp of Buddha? Can you tell me?"
"All of you, reveal yourselves!"
And that's whenever we find out that these people aren't who they say they are. They're actually like these other, kind of not immortals. I guess maybe immortals. I don't know. These other like heavenly figures.
Yeah, she gets them to like reveal themselves, and
and they're actually figures that we've seen. So in Uproar in Heaven, the Monkey King ends up fighting Erlang Sheng with his dog, and then he also fights the 4 heavenly kings. So these are the characters that she's fighting.
Oh, those are the same ones. Okay.
Yeah, you can see.
I knew they used some of the same like weapons and items and stuff from that we saw in Heaven and Heaven, but I didn't know if it was actually the same.
Right, you can see Erlang Sheng has his third eye that sees through to the truth.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's what that's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's like a prosthetic effect on his makeup effect. But you see one of the other gods that has his lute that he uses to play to put everyone to sleep. He tries to do that in this fight sequence, and she counters. She has these charms on her hands, and they have like a short music fight, and she ends up defeating all these guys. Once she has unsheathed her sword, she has like a magic sword that she uses. Once she does that, she quickly defeats everyone. The other thing I was going to say about the action is, and you see it in this scene right away, is that even though there's some choreographed action going on, the camera's pretty tight on Athena herself. So you kind of get the sense that she's more important than the fight that's happening.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. I like that.
You can't really blame them for that because she's super cute. And there's a lot of wire work again. Actually, in a couple of shots, you can see some.
You can totally see the wires.
Yeah, especially in like a daylight scene like this one.
Just quickly before the fight, they have this kind of thing where Erlang Sheng kind of just tells you the whole thing. He's like, you escaped from heaven, you were Buddha's lamp wick. And also, and I don't know why he says it, but
"You offer the gift of your love to the one who can unsheathe your magic sword."
Yeah.
Which is like, I get that you should say that, but how does that
Right.
how does
How
that
does that have
relate
anything to do with you
her
guys
escaping?
and your
Yeah.
situation?
Yep. So
And
once
then-
she's able to outdo these guys, she kind of makes them dance and everything, and she makes her way.
Mhm.
She escapes.
When she
And
has
then-
this, that cool sort of like magic power where she's like shaking her hands.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, and it's
And that's the last time you really see them in the movie. Which again, it's those things where, you know, if you understand, you know, Journey to the West and all that stuff, then it's like, oh yeah, they're just guys from Journey to the West that just pop in and then leave. Not
right.
you
Yeah,
know, if
they're
you
almost
don't know
like
it, then
celeb cameos or something.
yeah.
Sure.
And like, you're not, you know, to someone who doesn't know, you'd be like, well, why don't they come back in the rest of the movie? But that's just why. It's because they're not
Yeah.
really part of this story.
Yeah, totally. What's cool is then, after this, we kind of jump into Joker's story, and we're basically playing back the last maybe
Yeah, it's
3-5 minutes of part one. I mean, and I haven't checked them side by side, but I think even it's down to the edit is, I think, exactly the same.
yeah,
Maybe,
I think it
maybe
is. I'm pretty sure it is the exact same. Just it goes on a little longer, and a couple of shots are a little bit longer. Before, of course, the main edition.
Right. And it's great because we still have that wonderful beat that ended the movie with the great like Monkey King music and the mirror. But I love actually how the scene plays on. Like, it would seem like it's difficult to kind of follow that moment. But I think, they kind of keep the energy going. And in general, I would say we kind of pick up the tone of the comedy right where we left off.
Yeah.
Because Joker has this this difficulty with the stone door.
Yeah.
That again almost has this kind of like magical.
Yeah, kind of Looney Tunesy with
properties.
the door just keeps falling on him. Every time he says open the door, it just falls on him to open. And then the best bit though is, of course, whenever he backs up far away from the door, does the open the door, but then it still lands on him.
Yeah, that's great. I
That
just
got
love
me.
the like that serious look on his face, which is like such a Stephen Chow thing. I don't know how to explain it, when he's like really committed to trying to like one up this door. And there's a cool like POV shot too, as he's like
I like
kinda
that.
strafing or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Athena Chu's character, she thinks she hears a noise, she runs out, and of course like the door slams on him. And this is kind of a Looney Tunesy thing too. Like, you see like one hand over here, one foot, kind of like it's like a splat under the door.
So she's claimed him as her own, and she's also grabbed the Pandora's box, and she's super excited that she's got it now. And what you kind of find out is that she's on the run from her sister. You don't really know the whole story, but Joker's really dead set on getting that. So he kind of talks to her a little bit. He's like, listen, I got transported back in time. Eventually, you're going to know these people that I've been involved with, and my wife in the future is in trouble, and I need that to save her. So she's like, yeah, whatever, you're crazy. So
and she's like domesticating him too. She's like, sit. Like on the floor. Good boy. I mean, so we kind of keep up that tone of like really kind of empowered women for the most part.
Oh, right. Yeah, sure.
That's also the thing it's introduced is, and this threw me off at first, but I was glad they actually do kind of explain it, which is that she actually is two people. That she is Zia and Zena, which is nice confusing having similar names.
And it's great because Joker doesn't realize it at first. She comes out at night, like they're outside and the moon is out, and he's asking her about Pandora's box, and she just seems kind of grumpier than we've ever seen, and she's like slapping him. She doesn't know what he's talking about with the box, and then he kind of wakes up the next morning and she's explaining, that's my sister. One of my favorite little jokes, I can't remember if it's here or if it's like the kind of following encounter with like the two sisters, but he's like,
you see, I'm his twin, Joker.
Joker and Joker are both a couple of big liars.
You'd be right about that.
like,
he kind of tries to fool her.
Yeah. And there's like a cool little thing because it's like, wait, is she making this up? Is this a real deal? Or is this like,
we've seen other characters in the
did
first
we just cut down
that,
on like the
that'll
cast a little bit?
just completely change their allegiances in a second. So like, why wouldn't that happen in this movie?
Right. But it's the come up with it, or she comes up with the idea. It's like, okay, we'll just tie ourselves together, like by the wrist, which doesn't really doesn't solve the problem.
I love his reaction to that. He's like, "Oh my god, like what's gonna happen to me?"
That camera work is beautiful too.
It's really good.
Like, yeah.
Also the scene where Zena shows up when they're out in the desert. She's kind of laying down, and there's a really great camera shot of her sleeping, but she just opens her eyes staring at him like very seriously.
Yeah.
I love how that looks. Yeah, because he's still really dead set on trying to get that Pandora's box so he can go. And then that night it doesn't work out for him. The next day he's trying to plead with Zaya about what's going on, and he's got a black eye now because he's been getting punched by her so much.
And she has the great idea. It's like, okay, well, you can pretend that you've like slain me with this sword.
So then, what happens is he grabs the sword and he unsheathes it just very casually. So she sees that and realizes
like,
what that means.
This
to
dude's
her.
the one. Yeah.
Yeah. So she kind of has a change of tone, and she says, "Let's go to the market." So they make their way to the market. So in this scene, we get introduced to Pigsy, one of our Journey to the West crew, and Sandy. So in this film, Sandy is played by Bing from the first film. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and Pigsy is Montat from the first film. So
you can't really
both
see
of those
it, but
actors. Yeah, but you can kind of hear his
big fake pig
voice
face
and
on.
everything.
But
and this we have a lot more masks in part 2 because we saw the Bull King in part 1, and we even talked about it, like how cool that the masks and makeup were. But yeah, in this 500 years in the past, we've got it's almost like a Henson workshop kind of a vibe in some of these.
Totally.
Yeah, because whenever we get to see the Bull King a little later, and all of like his cronies, I guess, are all like dog people and lizard people and all different kinds of
bird
stuff. Bird people, yeah.
Almost like Never Ending Story.
Oh, dude, totally.
Like, the kind of royal court, and there's all these really fantastical characters. You're like, whoa, who's that? That's kind of the vibe that I was getting from that. But
is that a Henson workshop? Never-ending Story.
Ooh, you're testing me. I don't know.
Ooh, I bet at least one of them is.
It's
I'll look that up in the background.
In my brain, there is only one Never-ending Story.
Dude, I'm with you.
But we haven't actually seen Sandy much in regards to the Journey to the West material we've covered. So Sandy is like the third member of the squad, and Sandy in the Journey to the West was originally like a river demon, and kind of like I was saying, like in a Japanese RPG, you like encounter this character and maybe you fight them in a boss fight, but then you end up kind of befriending them and they join you on the party.
Yeah, totally.
So that's kind of what's going on here. So Sandy usually has like a Shaolin spade, and Sandy usually has like either beads around his neck or like skulls, because that kind of represents his past as a demon. So it's cool to see Sandy represented here.
Yeah, totally. And I just love the scene of this market. We didn't really encounter anything like this in part 1. It just it feels like we're part of like a larger, more populated world. But yeah, there's like a really cute kind of interaction where in a roundabout way she's trying to like tell him what she's experiencing with the sword. She's and she's like, "Don't you hear that sound that the sword is making? It's like bum bum bum." And he's like, "No, you just made that sound." No, I'm like telling you what it sounds like. And yeah, she's just so animated and cute, man.
I love the it's so like kind of took me aback whenever Joker's like, "Well, what are you gonna do? Like, you want me to show you my heart?" And she says, "No, I'll just take a look at it." And then she shrinks and goes inside of him to look at his heart.
It's like they had to,
and they call it the coconut.
They had to set from the first one.
The set from the Bull King scene in the first movie.
Well, and they also gave us kind of an introduction to like how the logic of that worked too, which is like that the person is frozen like when they're being explored, and they have tons of fun with that in this movie.
And it does end up being an important factor in the film, you know, because she speaks directly to his heart and she learns some things, and they don't reveal it just yet, but that becomes pretty important towards the end of the film.
You know, they're remaking that what's it called? It was that Mel Gibson movie where he could read the minds of women? Is it called What Women Want? They're like doing like
that?
Well, they're doing it as like a gender swap with Taraji Henson, and so it's like What Men Want or whatever. But
Okay.
That's literally a stand-up bit I heard at one point. That was, if it was the reverse, that would be a way grosser movie.
Yeah, I can't see what the appeal would be unless she could go inside their coconut hearts.
That's true. To see their literal hearts. To see if they really love them.
I feel like that. Yeah, they should brush up on this movie.
And they should use the exact same set.
Same set. Don't change things.
The set is
There's like
amazing.
Cobwebs, and it's like rotting because it's 20 years old.
Yeah.
It looks like kind of like a really well done local haunted house.
You're totally right.
Oh, totally. It's great, man. Yeah, just the whole style, like the art direction of this movie is really, really fun, really special. I mean, and you can see it having an impact on some of other '90s Hong Kong productions, and likewise taking cues from previous movies. But really special. One of my favorite little beats is like around this spot we cut to these dudes who are walking by the alley, and they notice that Joker's frozen, and so it's like they're going to try to pickpocket him, and he comes to like right when one of them has like their hand like on his chest, and it's like, should I stop? It's like, no, keep going.
Like he's like, oh, you have nice body, so I'm just kind of feeling. He's like, oh, you can keep going,
It's like, I don't know. It's another thing with like the tone of Stephen Chow humor. He's like not afraid to. I don't know. I feel like prior to this, I think there could be there's a lot more maybe like prevailing kind of like macho sort of humor.
Yeah,
exactly.
And like he's so comfortable like really, I don't know, subverting a lot of that and kind of like playing free and loose with like just where the line is, even in some of this kind of like sexual humor and stuff.
I feel like another comedian would do like a pretty easy gay panic kind of joke at this time period.
Totally.
But that one's just like, nah, you can keep filming me.
And we have more of that like later when there's, when in doubt, if anyone makes a claim like, oh, I would do this if the gods like demanded it, you can count on the gods then like demanding it a half a minute later. Having to
exactly.
Eat their words.
The very next scene after that is literally the prologue from, like we were mentioning before, it's the prologue from the first movie, only Joker can see it. Which, when I first saw this, I was thinking, I wonder if this is like a dream sequence.
Yeah,
or
like a memory.
vision.
But then you're like, oh no, wait, 500 years ago. Okay, so this would sort of line up. And it's interesting how they play with the like time paradoxy kind of stuff in this movie. He's there, and I mean, you didn't see Joker previously, but he doesn't have a lot of bearing on the scene. He does kind of what follows afterwards, but
you could totally. I think even though this has some time travel stuff and it's a bit confusing, I think that if you really look at it and laid it out, it would be sound, because the Monkey King, and we've got like reincarnation and stuff like this. I think that this whole sequence, it's not like it's like a time loop or anything like that. Like you could totally have seen that going back, and then Guan Yin punishing them, and then 500 years later is when we encounter Joker, and then Joker ends up traveling back 500 years. So I think it all kind of works. I think it's interesting to see, and you get a little extra exposition from Longevity Monk. Like you kind of understand why not only Monkey, but even in this scene, Guan Yin herself, the goddess of mercy, is kind of fed up with him yapping all day.
I think that's like a joke that doesn't necessarily land in the first movie. I mean, it's the very opening scene, so you're still kind of figuring out the tone. But they're really trying to establish that this dude is annoying and people can't stand to like hear him talk.
He just rambles and rambles.
And that's like a huge source of a lot of the fun of part two is just how annoying Longevity Monk is. Also, what's cool about revisiting some of these scenes is, at least in the version that we're watching, it's a different subtitle translation. I don't know all in all which one which translation I would say is stronger, but at least it's different and maybe provides like a different kind of take on the scene. And then the dub is reperformed also for these moments, so that's kind of cool.
And I still would really recommend the dub from this. Like these two films, I really ended up enjoying the dub a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's awesome.
And actually, there was a thing that kind of made me think about this movie a bit more because I watched it like 2 or 3 times. But Guan Yin says at the beginning that Monkey King stole the Pandora's box from the Purple Fairy. So one of the things that I was doing when I was digging around is that Zaya, her name translates to purple itself. So you've got this other kind of layer of maybe, you know, he had encountered her already.
When you see the two sisters fighting, they depict it as, I think, a purple and yellow bolt of lightning.
It's really interesting.
And that also explains, because the thing I was thinking watching this scene was, how did he get the box? Because didn't Zia have the box a second ago? But I guess
so. He actually stole it from her.
He did steal it like a few hours before this happened.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Imagining Stephen Chow and Jeffrey Lau having a whiteboard that has all of all the timeline and then all the things connecting it with string and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, like in any type of media, if you're gonna be toying with time travel, any viewer is just ready to poke holes through it. So anybody that's trying to attempt any kind of time travel stuff, I'm like, man, you better get that straight, because
that's why they at least have like the tone kind of on their side. I think if you're going for something a little more broad and kind of madcap, I think you could make a lot of that work.
Yeah.
Here, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I can only speak as like an outsider culturally and stuff. So there are just multiple layers of confusion. And I think some of that is from the time travel. Some of that is from the lore. And some of that is probably lost in translation or just context or background or something.
I think in the end, the movie is still fun, and that doesn't detract from the fun of the film.
And
so
I think the human stakes, I think, are extremely clear and really well portrayed and acted. And I kind of even imagine with at least like there are certain scenes even with the subtitles off. You really feel what's happening, particularly between Stephen and Athena.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah, so, okay, what ends up happening in this scene is Joker does end up grabbing the Pandora's box, but he gets knocked in the head because Longevity Monk's going to sacrifice himself. But there's a different outcome, and he ends up getting transported with Pandora's box because when the staff hits him, he collapses and it, like, aims towards him. And it's actually really funny. I think he does this kind of scream. But he hits a really good note, like musically. He's almost singing.
Dude,
that
is some foreshadowing.
Which is some really good foreshadowing.
Oh yeah, totally. I love that.
Oh man, when we get to that, I don't know. There is a moment in this movie that might rival the
I think
groin
you're right.
on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And that's this next scene. This next scene is where we see that Black Mountain demon, because the Longevity Monk comes over and is like wearing all these different outfits and stuff. At first he starts off wearing like this Indian outfit, like with like a turban and a robe, and then changes to like a Roman centurion. I remember mixing that up. And he turns into a pharaoh.
They're like joking around with him having Pandora's box and maybe traveling to different time periods. Yeah. It's like kind of a fourth wall breaking joke. But this is what we were talking about earlier, where we get that scene of them kind of messing around with the Black Mountain demon.
But then the Bull King shows up again.
Yeah. What you really end up having going on here is that the Bull King shows up, and actually you kind of get the whole crew from Journey to the West finally, like, in their own way meeting up, even though Joker's kind of denying himself being the Monkey King. Yeah. You get everybody joining up, and that's pretty cool.
Sandy and Pigsy are both there.
Yep. And this is now after the Bull King shows up, and then he kind of kidnaps Joker. This is when things get pretty confusing.
Yeah, they get crazy. And we had some little tastes of this in the kind of like Back to the Future-esque tag at the end of part 1. We saw some of these scenes. This is like Stephen in that really like striking red sort of like groom's outfit.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like a scholar outfit.
Yeah, it's really cool. And actually, one of Stephen's really big movies from around this time is a movie called Fording Scholar, and he had a similar style outfit, though not as red. And so as it happens, the Bull King has set up Joker with his sister, who's not very bull like. And so he's arranged it so that the two of them are going to be married, and she has this incredible kind of veil that's hiding her face. Also, maybe adds some of the confusion for us because we're introduced to a couple of key new characters like in this part of the movie.
So the Bull King in Journey to the West, his wife is Princess Ironfan, and he kind of says this too. So what's happening is he wants Joker to marry his sister, but the Bull King is gonna marry his mistress, he says.
Yeah.
And when you see who it is, it's Zaya herself.
Right.
So he found Zaya in the desert.
And then we have a great beat because Joker had basically, shut her down previously, saying like, "Look, I'm already married. I can't do this." And now when she meets him again, he's about to get married to someone else. Yeah.
Yeah, she's straight up mean mugging him that whole scene.
Oh, it's great.
But the other thing is that Bull King shows that he has a Pandora's box. So if he gets married to Zaya, he'll give it to her as a gift. So of course Joker sees this.
Yeah, and he's trying to like give her sort of like eye language, like, oh, let's grab the box. But yeah.
Yep, totally. And this is like what you were saying, Matthew, where you get all these costumed characters. I think my favorite is that main like lizard.
The lizard dude, yeah.
Liz guy has kind of like a beret or something on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it's actually a beret. Kind of looks like a beret. And the dog guy and everything.
Yeah.
But not too long after this, though, Joker kind of runs away and Zaya follows him. And this is where we get like another good stab of comedy here with the whole freeze frame thing.
Yeah.
At this time, her sword is mere inches from my jugular vein. But in mere seconds, the owner of the sword will fall for me again. This is because I will lie to her. And though I've told many lies before, the lie I'm about to tell will be my very best ever.
It's
but
really good.
everything freezes and he says all that stuff and
Yeah.
and then just lies his head off, saying that he loves her, but it turns out to be true later.
Yeah, so that red is like straight lies to you guys, like watching it the first time. What did you say?
Well, that's the thing. It starts as a lie, but then at the end of the movie, it's 100% what happens and is true, but doesn't end up the way that he would have liked it to.
I had the gift of a woman's love, but I didn't treasure it. And I lost her. I suffer all the time.
It's funny, like for me, I feel like it's like this weird combination where it's like it's funny because he's crying so much and he's like hamming it up, but it also feels like kind of true even in this moment. But maybe I just read it in a weird way, or I just like so want them to get together.
Oh, sure. Yeah, over the course of the film, it is interesting because you've got the last film with him and Jing, and that's so sad. And that's really what's driving him at the beginning of this movie. But as the movie goes on, you're like, wow, you're really pulling for... And I think it's Athena's fault. Like, it's really, honestly, like, she's so adorable that you're like, oh, man, come on.
But ultimately, I think, like we were saying at the beginning, it's like, I think that's part of what makes this movie as much of a success as it is. It's because it is designed for the two of them to end up together. So it's like, she has to have that kind of pull. Or it just isn't gonna work. Yeah.
So also we get Princess Ironfan. She ends up showing up.
Yeah.
So the Bull
Dude, that's
King's
a great kind of like super extreme, like low angle.
Yeah,
shot.
it's really good. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. So she is like storming her way in, and Bull King's like, oh crap, like this is bad for me. So he kind of helps Joker kind of make another lie where he says that Joker is gonna marry Zaya. Yeah. But then Princess Ironfan pulls Joker to the side, and she's talking to him as the Monkey King. Because in Journey to the West, and if I remember this right, in the story where the first time they interact with Princess Ironfan, or maybe it's later, but anyways, the Monkey King disguises himself as the Bull King to get the Ironfan and to get his way. So what ends up happening is like she kind of ends up developing a relationship with the Monkey King in the story of Journey to the West. So they're kind of playing this up right now. So she really is only concerned with him. She doesn't care about Bull King cheating on her.
And she sets up this like, meet me at midnight tonight, and I'll tell you something really special or something.
Right, like such a romantic comedy trope, right? This kind of. And then
it's like,
driven woman.
It's like not half a minute later, he's back to talking to Athena, and she said, well, why don't you meet me at midnight, and we'll use Pandora's box together is the plan at that point.
Yep. We got like almost like a double date situation.
yeah, totally.
And then what ends up happening here is that he's making his way in the evening, but Pigsy and Sandy catch up with him, and they're concerned with their journey. So what they end up doing is they take Joker over to see Longevity Monk, who's kind of trapped in a jail cell.
This is what it's all about, right, guys?
Yeah. Oh man,
because he goes, and what actually happens is he goes to see Longevity Monk, and Longevity Monk basically says, "You're the Monkey King, and I can't do the journey without you." But the way he does it is there's a musical number.
What goes like this? Dong 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 dong.
What's dong dong dong?
Dong da dong 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 dong. Listen.
Only you can take me choice again.
He just very suddenly breaks into like a Cantonese version of Only You, the classic oldies by the Platters.
The Platters, cool.
Yeah. And it starts off like in English, and then actually there's a couple of moments where like the English lyrics like line up perfectly with the original song, but it's mostly like in Cantonese about basically how crucial the Monkey King is to him. And
the music's so cheesy. It sounds
it's like a bad karaoke.
Totally. Oh man, yeah. And this is one of the things where I was totally getting like Shaolin Soccer vibes.
Oh sure, totally.
With them singing in the bar. And
this really helps to kind of like bring it home that this guy is like long-winded and annoying, and like all the shots cutting back to Joker. He can't bear it, and there's a great little fake out where we think the song is over, and he breaks into another verse.
It's great.
It's perfect. And he's also of course, you can hear it, he's not the best singer, so
yeah, exactly. It's what you would call approximate pitch.
If you're watching the dub, it breaks into the original audio as well.
Yeah, it does, which kind of threw me off because it threw me off because the subtitles didn't start off. But he says Only You, and at first thinking, is he just like I can't understand him because he's singing weird, or okay, no, he's actually just not speaking English anymore.
Yeah,
it's pretty great though.
Yeah, totally,
man. And then we think it's finally over, and he's about to go into like a third verse.
I'm not the man that you think.
Hey,
I've heard enough of you and your howling. You never stop, do you?
And Joker just, slaps him. And
he just starts smacking him.
Yeah. And let's see. I don't know if we've actually called out the actor that portrays the Longevity Monk, but his name is Lau Kar-ying, and he actually appears in a handful of Stephen Chow movies. They play off each other. Yeah, really well.
He's really good,
as you can tell here.
Yeah, he's great.
And I think he has a background in like Peking opera, like as like a performer and as a singer, I believe. So I think this is one of those great, almost like Catherine O'Hara in like a Chris Guest movie or something, or like the so bad it's good.
Yeah,
kind of like you have to be good to
he's
that
purposely
bad,
singing poorly, not because he's not a good singer.
Right.
So Joker goes to the midnight meetup, and discovers that Princess Ironfan has stabbed Zia.
And actually, it wasn't Princess Ironfan.
Right.
Yeah, it was.
Or was
it was supposed. It was the Bull King's sister.
Oh, that's right. It's the Bull King's sister stabbed.
And this is where I think it gets kind of confusing because you're expecting to meet Princess Ironfan. So I think I had that same reaction the first time. I assumed that was her, and then when she shows up, it's like, wait, who is this person?
Yeah,
totally.
That's right, and it's the sister. But that's the thing. But the sister's wearing like a blue outfit, like
sure.
Princess Ironfan was earlier.
Yeah, and her blade is bloody, and she has that kind of logic we've seen in movies before that. It just doesn't work. It's like, oh, if she's dead, then you won't love her. You'll love me. And I don't think that works very often.
That's bad. Yeah.
But it's scary because you really think that she may have killed her. But we have a lot of close calls with like stabbings and stuff in the film. And thankfully not a lot of deaths. There's one really striking series of deaths we'll talk about in a bit, but yeah, other than that, people are able to pull through, luckily.
Yeah, and what really ends up happening in this scene is that Zhang, a Bull King's sister, she has the ability to make people switch bodies, and this is what you were saying earlier, Marty, where Monkey King says, actually, I'm sorry, it's Zhang. She says, like, if you were to fall in love with a monkey, like a pig, how would you feel about that? And Joker says, if that's what fate deems for me, that's what will be done. And not much later than that,
he's like holding his head so high.
Yeah, she does the technique where she like grabs character's head and swaps their like soul into the other body. So then she also tries to do that with Sandy. First she does it with Pigsy and Zaya, and then she does it with Sandy. And she says she's gonna like switch him into a rock, and he's like, "Oh no!" And then he like kind of interrupts her.
Yeah, not sure how he does it. There's
so something bad happens. And the other thing I was gonna say earlier, and we mentioned the beautiful scenery, but some of these like outdoor scenes, I don't even know where they filmed these, but they look crazy.
Yeah.
So this is like this kind of desert, like kind of canyon looking landscape, and there are these giant mountains, but they look like they have almost like anthill like type caves. Like
I wonder if it is. It reminds me of some of the locations in like the flashback areas of Crouching Tiger, and I think some of those were shot like near Tibet, I want to say. But I haven't done my research, but
I think it was like in Mongolia.
Yeah,
that they filmed some of the scenes in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, either way, it's really striking, these settings. It looks very smoky and kind of foggy, and I mean, they'd have to just be working with that scenery because it's such a huge landscape.
Yeah.
You couldn't really like fill that whole area up with smog.
Yeah, no, it's pretty nuts looking.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then when we get this is my favorite, where they Joker goes to Zaya, and when he like wakes her up, you can already see her tongue is like sticking out.
Yeah.
So great.
And then when he starts talking to her, you hear that it's not her voice, but it's Pigsy's voice.
Yeah, it's
and you're like, wait,
what? So it's great. The other thing I like about this idea is I think we mentioned in the last episode, at this point and for the next several years, Stephen and Ngmantat, they're almost like Laurel and Hardy. They're like nearly always together in movies. And so that little beat, like, oh, well, yeah, I'll marry him if the fates allow. And yeah, we just, even though he's in the Pigsy mask for all but the final scene of the film, we still at least get to have some fun here. And yeah, Athena is so good playing this, playing yet another character that's like possessed her body.
Yeah.
Yeah, super great.
And it's great seeing seeing Ng Tot playing as Zia in Pigsy's
so
body.
fair and kind.
And like the body language completely changes, even though it has this goofy pig mask on.
Oh man,
it's pretty good.
And we also have some. So we had a lot of like kicking the groin gags in part 1. We have a lot of vomit gags, I would say, in part 2. And this is one of the first really great vomit gags. Is basically he's trying to stay committed to the like, yeah, no, I said I would love you. And again, this is the part in the movie to me where it's like, I don't feel like he's totally lying. I don't know. Anyways, maybe it's somewhere in between. But so he's trying to stay committed to her, even though she's now in Pigsy's body. And he keeps trying to look at her and just like retching and vomiting off camera.
And there's a moment where she's kind of holding him and he's like passed out and trying to go for a kiss, and even him being passed out, he turns his head away. It's super good.
Oh man. And then the other gang that's been switched by Princess Iron Fan and so this is also a little bit confusing, like what's happened with the swap. So she says first that she's used up her power and can't use. Is it 46 days? It's something like that.
I feel like in the dub they say a different amount than in the subtitle. Because in the subtitle they said 49 days, but I feel like they said 40 days in the dub. I don't know. It's just one of those weird, like that's a weird thing to change.
Maybe they're just trying to match up the syllables or something. I don't know. But then as it happens, and I'm not sure if I am like reading this the right way, but it almost seems like she's able to use her power just a little bit for. So what's the other fairy sister's name? I'm getting
Zaya and Zena. So Zena is in Pigsy's body.
So Zena then like kind of presents herself like in Pigsy's body, and we really only hear Pigsy like 1 or 2 more times.
Because Zaya ends up. It's like Zaya. Maybe it's because she was already 2 people in that body. Her and
that's
her sister.
The way I saw it.
Yeah. So then Zaya is still in her own body, but Pigsy is there as well.
Yeah. So it's now Pigsy.
So at least we have like her and Joker are
body.
Pretty much get to sort of like retain their forms, and everyone else then is a little bit mixed up. And then we also then have a way of depicting her sister with a different actor, which is kind of cool.
And Bull King then shows up, and he looks pretty rough, and it's like him and Princess Iron
this is kind of cartoony also.
We're having some type of domestic dispute. So they both show up to interrupt this sequence, and you actually get I think it's a really cool short fight sequence between Bull King and Zaya. And she's unarmed. She doesn't have her sword with her, but she's trying to use her charms to fight. And he ends up using the fork to remove those charms. So it's too bad, because I thought that was a really interesting.
And Pigsy's fighting as well. Yeah, there's some really nice material in the choreography.
Yeah, for sure. We get a lot of Dutch angles. We get a lot of string work. You see some strings in camera shots again. But this kind of nice short burst of a fight I really enjoyed. What ends up happening is Joker's kind of trying to escape, and Princess Iron Fan is chasing him. Oh yeah, you get to see her use the fan itself, which is always cool to see.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, but he's kind of fake, like he jumped off the cliff by taking off his boot and leaving it as evidence. But he kind of goes back to make it look more real by leaving it closer. But he ends up falling off the cliff himself. Yeah, which I think is great, because you get Princess Iron Fan kind of having this inner monologue like,
"You chose suicide over me. It's time to go."
She's like, that's the last time you see her. She's like, I'm gonna leave now.
Yeah, she kind of gracefully exits the movie. But yeah, his fall turns into this kind of serendipitous moment, because the villagers down below are being cornered by these soldiers, and Joker just so happens to like fall on the soldiers in this kind of perfect way where one row of them like is blown back and their swords like plow into their fellow soldiers, and it's kind of a fun little beat. And so then they sort of regard him as like this immortal, even though he's like kind of lackadaisical and like falling over.
Right. So I think that's kind of the most confusing segment of the film. So I know we kind of
Yes.
dwelled on it a little bit, but I think that, yeah, it's one of these things where you kind of get a reward for multiple viewings of the film. And it's such a popular film, I'd imagine that a lot of people have seen it many times. So maybe it's a little easier that way. But yeah, that's all the crazy interactions, all the body swapping, all of this stuff. Yeah, hopefully you were keeping up and taking notes.
Yeah. Well, the confusion might continue a little bit too, because we see that Joker is he's kind of like coming to after having passed out, and he's having some visions of the past, and someone's tending to him, and he wakes up and he's back in our series of caves.
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah, and then he's being tended to by one of the villagers from the previous scene, and then we actually get to have the director Jeffrey Lau kind of come back.
Right, and that's interesting too, because if you're watching the subtitled version, they refer to him as Grandpa Buddha still.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's something that comes across in the film, or if it's something that maybe the subtitle.
No,
they're not the best subtitles. So
I have a note that says that they say Grandpa Buddha, and also they mention whenever they're tied up, they mention that they stole grapes, which feels like a callback also to the first one. And,
right.
And it was weird because in a second viewing, when I watched it, I was like, this almost feels like when he fell off the cliff, it almost feels like he went to a different, maybe this
time
is a
period.
Vision, or maybe this is because spoiler, the way the scene ends is that the spider demon comes in and kills him, but it almost feels like maybe this is him having a vision, because he dies either way. Maybe this is him having a vision after dying, falling off the cliff. He thinks that he sees Jing and all that, and then still gets reincarnated as
that's
King.
That's an interesting reading.
Because
I really like that take.
Because I feel like that makes
good.
more sense than whatever happens here.
Because when you see, because in this scene in the spider devil cave, you see Jing return, and what happens is Joker's kind of explaining, and this is pretty funny too.
Yeah, this is great. He's trying to do a rapid fire recap because she has no idea who he is.
He does a great inhale, okay, I'm gonna talk a lot right now. So
and then after he says all of it, Jing has this great dumbfounded mouth open look.
Right, and I also really love how Karen Mok, she's so good. They do a little thing where he's hopping, he hops, and there's a camera shot of her tracking the hop with her head, and it looks really funny. It's really good.
Because it's we should also say the recap ends up he recruits Jeff Lau and the other guys to kind of do a little pantomime play.
Basically recapping the first movie.
That's pretty great.
Yeah, it's great. It's super good. And so what ends up happening is she's pretty convinced, but what she wants to do is see his heart. So what she does is she jumps into him and has a conversation with his heart. She also says that it looks like a coconut.
Right. Tell me coconut. Yeah. And then, he kind of lets it slip. It's there was another woman that said my heart looked like a coconut. And I love how Jeff Lau handles both of these scenes. He doesn't portray what the heart tells either of these women.
Yeah, for real. It's cool.
Yeah, we just kind of internal. And also, Jeff Lau, I want to call out, his acting is great. One of the important bits of information that he's relaying in this part of the movie is basically Joker's conflicted romantic feelings, or I guess they're not even that conflicted, because he'll tell him, it's
while you were out, you spoke her name over 100 times.
Jing is my wife.
And you called out the name Zaya over 1,000 times.
What?
And whenever Jeff Lau does this, I think it happens 2 or 3 times, he does this turn away, and it's not a turn to the camera. He's not breaking the fourth wall, but there's just this kind of noble, I can't deal with you, completely turn in the other direction thing. And we only have a few scenes with them together, but I just love getting some of the chemistry with Stephen and Jeff like actually on camera is really cool.
Yeah, for sure. So what we have now is the Bull King has Zaya and Zena captured, and he says something like, within 7 days, you're going to be marrying me. And so Zaya is kind of holding out for Joker. She says, well, I'm not concerned, whatever happens, he's going to be back to save me. And then following that, you've got Joker in the spider cave again. He's still having like visions of Zaya and him, like, and he's kind of conflicted, and he ends up seeing her charms in the cave itself. And this is another kind of development, like, leading him back between Jing and Zaya and stuff like that. But in the meantime, you got the Bull King's kind of ceremony, which is pretty elaborate. We got this nighttime scene with lots of soldiers, and Zaya's dressed up in this kind of ceremonial outfit, and Zena, Pigsy, is tied up as a prisoner. So you got this going on, and then you've kind of got Jing and Joker's kind of their wedding kind of thing going on in the cave. But what ends up happening there is Jing kind of wrote him a letter saying, I talked to your heart, I know what's really going on, so I'm gonna go, and you need to be with this person. Yeah. So he's like, oh snap.
But before he can even react too much to that, then we get to see Yami Lam as the Spider Woman again, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Totally. She swoops in and basically says, it's kind of like she almost feels like she's on 10 plot points ago still, because she's talking about, like, getting revenge on her sister and stuff.
And it's a shock to the system, like, for this movie, I would say. I mean, even for part one, I don't know if we have anything as brutal as what she's about to do.
But she just kind of goes and kind of just systematically kills all of the people.
Yeah, and there's like these spurts of blood and everything.
Yeah.
And it's pretty shocking. And then she finishes. At first, Joker says something like, basically, I want you to cut out my heart and show it to me.
Yeah, this is a great
before
scene.
before I completely die. So that
I want to know like what it says, and I don't know. It seems like it's almost like gotten to her, like, emotionally,
right?
And it feels like we're about to exit the scene, and then she turns around and she stabs him, and I think. I mean, I think the editing is really great. I mean, you don't really see what's happening, but I think there's like a flash of blood or something before we
they show kind of a blood splatter. Yeah. And they cut away from the scene from that moment. So in my head, I was like, okay, he's dead now. Like, the next time you see him is him in the waterfall cave, like, speaking to Guan Yin. And this was the kind of thing that I was mentioning about, like, these Buddhist tenets and the whole kind of moral, like, stuff from Journey to the West. In the movie, you get a couple of times where Longevity Monk says to Joker that, life and death are meaningless. The most important thing is their journey and the enlightenment of getting the scriptures. And, like, Buddha's path that they're supposed to be walking on. So I kind of can see, even though this isn't directly adapting Journey to the West, it still holds on to some of these important Buddhist lessons.
What's interesting in this film is I think this is maybe just a consequence of how invested you are in the characters, but you're almost like poised to be a little bit against these values, because it's like, give up the material world, give up kind of like human connection and relationship and love, and you're like, no, I want these guys to finally get together. So it's kind of interesting. They're sort of able to have it both ways, where it doesn't feel like they're insincere with kind of proclaiming the Buddhist tenets, but it also is like it's more material to kind of twist the knife of some of the dramatic tension of the movie, which is cool.
It's a smart way to get a little bit of both, staying true to that, but also using that as kind of like a narrative force to kind of control the viewer's emotions.
Right. And yeah, Joker is told, like, as soon as he places like the ringlet on his head, he'll have to say goodbye to any of those
any material things,
connections.
Because if he desires material things, then it'll like squeeze on his head so tight that it'll like crush his head. And in the same scene, whenever he's like having this kind of conversation, he says that the thing that Zia left in his heart was a tear, and that's what Jing apparently saw that let her know that he had love for someone else, which is like that's really sad.
Yeah, it's super sad. You're oh man.
Yeah. And he kind of he sort of recites something that he said earlier, which we had maybe taken jest, where he's kind of tearfully proclaiming his love at sword point. So some of that language comes back just before he places the ringlet on his head.
Yep.
But what's great is we're not just kind of like waiting for him to arrive at the wedding. By this point, some of the fighting has already broken out because Zia has kind of convinced the Bull King that she should be able to free her sister. She's like, I'm going to go through with this. Let me like free her. And then once freed, it's kind of a touching moment. Then she finally wants to kind of defend her sister. And so she kind of launches an attack on the Bull King.
And also the Pixie and Sandy want to free the longevity monk. And then there's some more body swapping shenanigans, which involves a little dog runs up and someone's body gets swapped into the dog.
We also have more like longevity monk annoying gags that are also vomit gags.
Oh, that's great. Because the longevity monk is like boring the two guards, like him just going on and on about like, well, like demons aren't too different. Yeah. Then, we're not so different, you and I. You have a mother, I have a mother. And
it's like, tell me about your mother. Yeah.
The one guard just stabs himself so that he can get over it. And the other one, you can see him like making himself a noose. It's super dark.
He hangs himself.
Have you guys seen Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, not for years, but
so there's a scene that I love where he's riding on a train with a hobo, and they're starting to sing these like kind of campfire songs.
She'll be wearing pink pajamas, she'll be wearing pink pajamas, she'll be wearing pink pajamas when she comes. Jimmy cracked corn and I don't care. Jimmy cracked corn and I don't care. Jimmy cracked corn and I don't care.
And he ends up just tossing himself off the train. That totally reminded me of that scene in Pee-wee.
And as we're going to see in just a minute, I imagine Stephen Chow was a massive dork for American comedy because...
Oh, totally.
And so I'm sure he probably saw Pee-wee's Big Adventure because that was like 10 years or something before this.
Yeah.
And he comes in, like there's a bunch of storm clouds and he swoops in as the Monkey King. And there's this amazing shot where like these red like rolls of fabric are going behind him while he has this kind of like pose.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's a total gifable moment. Like I already made a gif before we even not too long after I watched the movie.
And it's not the exact frame, but this kind of shot was on the poster for the original release.
I believe it
too.
It's a good shot.
And it's super gratifying finally seeing the Monkey King depicted in action like this. And it's fast forwarding a little bit, but we'll even get to see him use his cudgel in like a gigantic form.
Yeah, which I was really glad to see that, where
amazing.
There's like a forced perspective kind of shot where it looks like it's like, I don't know, like fanning out or something. Like, I don't know, like it gets really, really big on one end, but not the other.
And it seems like they
constructed a giant thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Monkey makes a great entrance. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. He does like 30 like flips, and you have this scene that you were mentioning, and Bull King quickly sends his minions to him, and the first thing he does is sneeze, and his sneeze sends like a hurricane force wind and knocks everybody back. And the next thing he does is let out a huge fart, and that just sends everyone flying away.
Yeah, pretty legendary fart.
And yeah,
and it's
I don't
also
know.
Top 5 farts on the podcast.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, so far.
I still I love the beggar so fart from Magnificent Butcher.
Oh man, that's
a super good one.
And then so Zia is like right away kind of recognizing him, and we have a lot of kind of tension, possibly like frustration here, because now incarnated as the Monkey King, I think Stephen plays this great. It's like you have this sense that he still has some kind of connection for her, but he's like pushing her back, and he's short-tempered and angry.
Yeah, and he has that mischievous sense of the Monkey King.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know about you guys, but I was super getting Jim Carrey vibes off of his performance.
Yeah.
The first thing I thought when I saw him was that looks exactly like Jim Carrey. Like just the way that he like moves around looks like Jim Carrey's like The Mask or something.
Yeah, The Mask came out like around this time too. I think it's 1994.
I looked it up. The Mask and Dumb and Dumber. What was the other like big earlier Jim Carrey movie?
Ace Ventura.
Ace Ventura. That's one. Ace Ventura is the big one. Sorry, I couldn't remember. Ace Ventura is definitely the biggest like thing I can see. But that's crazy because Ace Ventura would have came out like the year that they were working on this.
Yeah.
So like that would have been Stephen Chow watching that and then incorporate I can't imagine there was a localized version of like in living color or something, right? Like
and even then, I mean, it does remind me of say Jim Carrey in The Mask, but I don't know if pulling from Ace Ventura you'd land on anything like this. I think it's maybe just like in some ways I think that's actually a great person to bring up, because there's a lot of these two gentlemen's comedy that is very similar, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
The way that just in terms of how they physically portray
this stuff. Could be like some type of parallel thinking, like I don't know, there's a lot of different things to consider. But
like, have you guys heard about that, like the Dennis the Menace, where there were like two cartoons of Dennis the Menace, one in America and one in England, that were created, I think it was like the same week, like without any knowledge of each other.
Wow.
Oh, wow. No, I didn't know about that. Yeah, that's great.
It's really nuts. I mean, it's a rhyming name, so like you could sort of see how that could happen.
Yeah.
But it's the timing is just crazy. It's like one of those
like
things.
In the movie, like we say, it's fate.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, this fight really escalates, and it's almost hard to describe like what is happening. But I think the Bull King is able to bring like the power of the sun, or he's able to bring the sun close. Yeah, did you guys track what's going on there?
What it is and just I got this. So
thank you.
Even before that, Bull King and Monkey King are fighting each other, and it's really cool. You get to see, like you said, the magic cudgel, and I also really like, even before there's the forced perspective version of it, the cudgel itself is visualized as like this thicker type of rod. It's not like staff like you would expect to see in a martial arts film. Yeah. It's got like this almost cartoony exaggeration to it. And one of the things I really like is when Monkey steals his fork, Bull King's fork, and he's cooking with it, and he has some chicken parts, but he's like, oh yeah, I forgot, I am a vegetarian. So pops an apple onto it. Yep. But then, Bull King rushes at him, and that's when he uses like the forced perspective, gigantic form of the cudgel to like really own him. He like pounds him like a nail into the ground, and then the monkey actually kind of has this mercy where he's like, oh, I don't want to do this to you in front of your minions, so he like knocks him up out of the ground. But what you end up happening in this fight is you see the Bull King kind of has this thing where he shakes like bugs off of him and they become his little minions.
Yeah.
And the Monkey King can do the thing where he kind of uses his own hair and makes clones of himself. So you get a huge sequence of like, I don't know, 40 or 50 monkeys and the little Bull King guys fighting each other.
It's great, like like kind of coming full circle from Havoc in Heaven. Just seeing like such a similar depiction of like how he uses his power and yeah, like you're saying, I mean, seeing this like army of monkeys. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, when you think of like the makeup and costuming that went into that.
Yeah, just for that one
they
scene.
They each have staffs, and then there's the scene where they've like they're all throwing them in the air, and it's like, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible stuff.
So what you have here is the Ox King brings out his ultimate weapon, which is the iron fan itself. So he starts fanning everything away, and you've got like this hurricane force wind destroying everything. And you have a short sequence here where Longevity Monk and Zaya are both getting tossed away. So this is this symbolic, realization where it's the Monkey King having to decide between, the love that he had for Zaya and his, I guess, immortal, like his divine mission to protect the monk. And he chooses Longevity Monk.
Yeah.
But also what you have is another Buddhist thing where she's going to kill herself. And he really jumps in and he says that, you have to treasure your own life. So he kind of saves her there. But the Bull King is like really going at it. And what he does is he's launching like a piece of the earth up into the sun. So what's going to happen is like it's going to hit the sun and the sun's going to explode, I guess.
Or something.
It's like really dramatic and really weird.
And like as they're getting closer, the fan starts catching on fire.
Yeah. And this is a really desperate move by the Bull King, and it could be really bad for everyone. So Monkey really is thrust into trying to solve this problem and save everyone. But also you've got Zaya, who's kind of really committed to making him admit his love to her. And he kind of has a give where she sees that he's still holding on to the charms that she had. And she flies up to confront him about it. But in the middle of that, the Bull King is going to attack, and she kind of jumps in the way, and she gets stabbed by the Bull King.
Yeah.
So,
and she's starting to slip away, and this is like a legitimately like emotional kind of scene because she's totally slipping away, and Monkey King goes in to try to help her, but as he's doing it, he like the crown starts to tighten, and he like starts screaming and has to let her go before flying back to the island, and she's kind of lost in space.
It's brutal because he's attempting to grab on to her, and so he's holding on like by just the fingers, but then the ringlet like keeps tightening on his skull, and then he ends up having to just grab.
But then he flies back, and he's able to defeat the Bull King, and they kind of sees everything's on fire and crashing around him. They have to use the Pandora's box to I guess kind of teleport out of there. Pandora's box is like the get out of plot free card.
Luckily they don't really exploit it that often. They're all wanting to use it, but
I really like him owning the Bull King though. There's all these like home run hits where he's launching the Bull King up into the air every hit. It looks really cool, and he does this really like cool like almost Bruce Lee jump kick or dive kick and launches him to the ground. So what they do is they use Pandora's box to escape. Monkey goes to see Zena, and she says, like, my sister's gone. I'm gonna go back to becoming the Buddha's lampwick. So he leaves her behind. That's her fate. You know? So then everything kind of wipes away, and we've kind of got the finale of the film.
Yeah, he goes back. They're in like the waterfall cave. And it kind of feels like the whole movie is about fate, and this kind of just feels like the world like realigning to where it's supposed to be, because he just wakes up and it's just kind of the journey to the west, where like there's Pigsy and Sandy and the Longevity Monk are all just in the cave, and
the Longevity Monk is like a man of very few words.
He's very quiet now.
Yeah, that's really good.
And it's like there's like a tour group that goes through the cave. It's
funny, I feel like that's a convention I've seen like in other Hollywood movies like since this point in time. I can't think of like a good example, but yeah, it was really interesting. It almost felt like it's that same kind of mix of like modernity and kind of period that we had so much of in the part one.
Yeah.
And whenever he goes outside of the cave, this is where we see the sisters again, the formerly Jing and the Spider Devil outside, and they're just like selling.
Yeah, now they're the bean curd
sisters. Yeah, you know, flows off the
and
tongue.
Then we have this we have this great reveal of this like significant person in the village, and it's Ingman Tot in this like incredible garb, and he looks amazing. And actually both of the sisters run to him, so it's apparently like some kind of like polygamous kind of or at least that's how it came across to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Then the very last scene in the movie is we see, I guess, an alternate universe version of Zaya and Joker standing on top of like this archway gateway thing, and it's kind of like their conflict throughout the beginning of the movie, but then this time the Monkey King just possesses Joker to get him to kiss her, and then leaves, just kind of forcing him to live the life that he kind of wants to live secretly.
Right. It's a really, honestly, I think this is maybe one of the more like intentional and like well-crafted endings of, at least, I mean, any of the kind of Hong Kong movies I think we've covered.
Yeah.
Because a lot of other movies we watched, the movie would have ended whenever he killed the Bull King. It just would have been a freeze frame into the credits.
Well, and it's just so poignant because, like you say, he's taking possession, but it's not as though it's like the opposite intention of the Joker of this era. He's just kind of giving him the nudge that he would want, and he's also allowing himself to kind of experience this love, one more time. And it's really powerful because Zaya's like looking back over her shoulder at the Monkey King as he's departing on his journey to the west, and you can, again, the way that Athena plays it is just really, really terrific. And you have this there's this sense of loss, even though we've kind of arrived at a version of a happy ending.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a movie it quite reminds me of, because I feel like the tragic tone like never really goes away, but you do like close everything, and again, there's just a lot of intention, I think, with this finale. And like you were saying, Matthew, it's like this is the version, or this is like the dimension or the universe finally where the characters are kind of conformed to the actual story of Journey to the West.
I read them as, reincarnated versions of Joker and Zaya.
Yeah, totally.
I also think that the Monkey King just seems really cool in this whole situation. You get this inner sense that, he's kind of like sad about it, but also like, I don't know, like this is like the way that he's getting this ending, even though he's not getting the ending.
Yeah.
His ring isn't going to constrict his head, but he also can live with the fact knowing that
in some timeline he had the happy ending with the girl.
Yeah. And I also really like after that when he's making his way, you finally get the shot of the party from Journey to the West. There's a really cool like camera shot of them all just making their way. And I like Pigsy's, he's got his little song that he sings. I forget the wording, but that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, it's really, it's just the perfect moment to kind of take us out. It's amazing really thinking of what Jeff Lau did with both of these movies. And I think I said something like this on the last episode, but I feel like this would be very much in vogue today, like in Hollywood, dealing with like a classic property. It's like part prequel, part very liberal reboot, part kind of like alternate dimension kind of thing, but then it still lives in the universe. And I feel like this is kind of the first example of that particular kind of fusion, at least that I'm really aware of.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Yeah, just a lot of crazy ingenuity here. As we've been saying, like both of these movies, I think they require a fair amount of research. You kind of need to build your own like footnotes and annotations to maybe kind of fully appreciate these movies. But really special pieces of cinema, and I think it's easy to see why they had such a big impact when they came out.
It's
in Hong Kong and in mainland China.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's definitely, like we've been saying, it's definitely kind of hard to follow. I mean, that's why part of why we've been talking about it so long, is it's kind of a lot of stuff really leads from one bit to the other, and it's kind of hard to not talk about everything because so much of everything is interconnected. And like even the first part is a little more straightforward until you get to the end. But even that's pretty straightforward. It's just, it's just Groundhog Day. It's just the same thing being repeated over and over. But this one has like possibly multiple timelines. I don't know. It's kind of nuts.
And I don't know why it's called Cinderella, guys.
Yeah. So it's funny. I was trying to translate this in the background, and so the first film, the literal translation from the Chinese title is "Journey to the West: The 100th Moonlight Treasure Box," which I think is like the kind of a more literal translation of the actual magical
the item
box
that they just call Pandora's
and so
box.
they used Pandora's box to basically have like a cultural kind of equivalent, which makes me think whoever was responsible for that translation was responsible for
Cinderella.
The second translation. When you think about it, like even the first title betrays a little bit of maybe a misunderstanding of the term. I mean, I suppose it works where after a while you just kind of overwrite whatever you thought the Pandora's box was, before encountering this movie. But that isn't really what Pandora's box is, at least as we understand that idea in the West. My guess is that Cinderella is trying to get at some kind of rags to riches kind of story, but that might be kind of a stretch because the Chinese title is literally Journey to the West, Journey.
Perfect.
So there isn't.
I love it.
There's not an element of
some like story or something.
Cinderella.
Yeah, I guess. I guess because
I don't know. I mean, I think Joker could be Cinderella in a way. Kind of from rags to maybe the riches of being the immortal Monkey King, or maybe it's Zaya's character in a way. I mean, she's clearly the star of the movie.
I mean, I guess kind of the sword is a little bit like the slipper, right? Because it's like something that only the chosen one or whatever. I don't know. That's the closest. That's the closest thing I could think of.
Oh, totally.
But that's not the most important thing to the story.
It reminds me of kind of like the name Donkey Kong, because if you guys heard that story,
it's like
Miyamoto was looking in like a translation, and they thought donkey could be a synonym for, I think it was like crazy or
that was
something
stubborn.
Like that. Oh, sure. But it's like English speakers don't really regard that word that way.
Like you might say someone's as stubborn as a donkey, but you wouldn't just say someone's a donkey, just in your normal everyday speech.
Right. But it led to something
Carlos
that's
might.
now
He was
so
laughing
iconic.
Over there, so.
Did you know that in Japan it's actually called Doki Doki Kong?
Dude, is that for real?
No.
No.
I so like lean on you as like the Japanese authority, so I'm like, oh man, you could easily dupe me probably 100 more times.
You're too trusting.
So that was Chinese Odyssey Part 2, Cinderella.
I killed it.
Nice.
Now, whenever you bring up Doki Doki Panic, you kind of peak. So,
man. I actually would say if our listeners care enough to maybe give their thoughts on why it's called Cinderella.
Oh yeah,
they
should hit us up.
I would love to hear ideas.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Hit us up.
It would be fun to get a dialogue.
You can hit us
going.
up all kinds of places. You can hit us up on Facebook or on Twitter or on Instagram. We are Heroes3 Podcast on all of them. You can email us at heroes3podcast@gmail.com. And if you're checking us out from the Kung Fu Cinema subreddit, then first off, thank you. And you can leave your, your theories, I guess, in the comments of it.
Yeah. You could also comment on the blog, I suppose, and that's heroes3.com, and that will take you right there.
Yeah, and actually we try to throw in a little, maybe, GIFs or links to something that we talk about during the episode. So yeah, check us out on the blog and let us know what you think.
Well, that's all for this week, but Marty, what is our training for next week to finish up this look at Monkey King Sun Wukong related stuff?
Yeah, so we're going to stay in the family, so to speak. So next week's movie, and we might have talked about it, this is Journey to the West, Conquering the Demons. This is Stephen Chow's return to the world of Journey to the West. So not a film that he starred in, but a film that he wrote, produced, directed. He was even involved in the action choreography. And this was kind of a giant splash when it came out. I believe it was 2014 or 2015.
Yeah, it's around there.
There's actually a sequel just last year that came out. We'll stop after this film, but yeah, luckily this is fairly widely available. It's definitely rentable through YouTube and Amazon and iTunes, and I know the Blu-ray is still in print.
Yeah, I remember seeing it on Netflix. I don't think it's on Netflix right now.
Yeah, it's not on there right now, but it was even earlier this year, I think.
Yeah, I think it definitely, it's a post Kung Fu Hustle film. So you get a lot of these really, really exaggerated action sequences. So that's pretty cool to see. So I had a lot of fun watching it when it first came out. So yeah, I'm excited to watch it again.
Yeah, and I think I just mentioned briefly, but the English translations of the films we just watched were A Chinese Odyssey, but the Chinese titles were Journey to the West. So this was meant to be kind of a follow-up to those films so many years later.
Well, cool. Well, until next week, where we're taking a look at Journey to the West, Conquering the Demons, I'm Matthew.
I'm Marty.
I'm Carlos.
And we are the Heroes 3. Remember your training. Heroes 3 is part of the Mercado Brothers Podcast Network.